be good to have a different lifestyle. So I chose Colorado because my college roommate lived here.
Oh,
Every
okay.
time I would come visit her over the years, I just fell in love with the lifestyle and the scenery, and I thought this would be a place where I could begin again.
Great.
The sun shined a lot, and
It does,
it was
so
just a lovely lifestyle, and I have not looked back.
Great. And what side of town? Where did you move into?
Lowry.
Lowry.
Yeah.
Oh, so you've been there, you moved there, been there?
I've been there. Yeah,
Wow.
I met a wonderful guy, also with Steve, about a year after I got here, and
That's an interesting story. Do you mind sharing
yeah,
that with
well,
me?
he at that point was a newscaster. He was the morning news anchor for the ABC TV affiliate, and I didn't know who he was because I'm a single mother of twins who were in kindergarten. I had a lot on my plate. I was working, but also, and I read about Steve being profiled in the Rocky Mountain News as one of Denver's most eligible singles for 5280 magazine. And I thought that was interesting. And I read, of course, that he too had been widowed with 2 children. And I thought, well, maybe we could be friends. So I sent him an email and a photo, and amid all crazy odds, we wound up getting married and blending our families, and we're coming up on 15 years.
The newlyweds still.
Yeah, how about that?
So anyway, you have a pretty expansive resume. You're a writer, a
I have a
speaker.
Master of Fine Arts in Creative Nonfiction, and I've written a few books, and I speak about resilience and storytelling and
Right.
owning your story and legacy.
Right. So one of the things you do is GAB, Guided Autobiographies. Just briefly, can you tell me what that's about?
So I am a certified instructor in guided autobiography, which is a curriculum that was developed in the 1970s by a well-known gerontologist and psychologist at USC, who at that point in time was doing research on ways to help seniors feel a greater sense of optimism and purpose about their lives. In the decades since, the curriculum has been adapted and used for diverse audiences, young and old. It is a wonderful curriculum that helps people to reflect on meaningful life experiences 2 pages at a time. I love teaching multi-generational groups in particular, and since I have been teaching GAB, it's a great acronym, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
The gift of GAB. Really for the past 4 years, I have, like maybe 175 students
Wow.
all over the world,
Wow.
from their mid-20s to 97.
Wow. Now, you say there's a group. How many people are in a group?
Well,
4 or
it,
5?
It,
or?
no, it depends. The class makeup really depends on typically 8 to 10 are in a group, but it really just depends on the makeup. I do retreats also, and sometimes when we do things in person, we can mix up the numbers more.
I see. Now, so each week, it's 8
Each-
weeks, right? 8 weeks?
Some programs are.
Okay.
So it really depends. The foundational GAB programs, GAB 1, GAB 2, and GAB 3 are 8 weeks each.
Okay.
But I also have specialty courses. So I have a specialty theme about love, where students write and reflect on the many facets of love, and that's typically 6 weeks.
Okay.
So it really just,
So it keeps you pretty busy.
Right. And then I'm going to be offering 1-day GAB workshops too, because people are very busy, and sometimes, especially professional audiences, they may want the opportunity to reflect on a particular theme. So maybe if you're a business and you want to do something for your employees, you want to reflect on a bucket list theme, let's say. So, or you want to reflect on treasures that matter. So there's all kinds of ways to adapt GAB to meet a group's needs within just a few hours too.
Wow. Very interesting.
Yes, it is.
Very interesting. Now, before we get into the life letters, you've got you got some seminar, or not? Are they seminars or like in Savannah?
Oh,
Or
I'm
retreats,
leading a retreat.
retreats.
Yes, I'm actually leading a retreat a Life Letters retreat at the
Okay.
Biltmore in Asheville, North Carolina in April,
Okay.
which is just about sold out, which is
Wow.
fantastic.
How many people?
We have 13 so far who were signed up, and we have a few more who I think will be coming.
Wow,
Right,
that's very
and that's a 4-day retreat at the Biltmore.
And that's all Life Letters.
Yes.
Now,
Tell
me about that. What is Life Letters?
This Life Letters really came about because, rather my involvement in Life Letters, helping people write Life Letters, came about because the work I was doing in GAB prompted several students to come to me and to ask me if I would teach them how to craft an ethical will or a legacy letter, or as I call it, a life letter. So the traditional name for life letter, the historic name, is an ethical will. Ethical wills are thousands of years old. They are rooted in both the Christian and the Jewish traditions, and their history is absolutely fascinating. There's many biblical examples. But in the centuries since, they, and I think honestly because of the pandemic too, they are making a comeback in a way because people are reflecting more purposefully and intentionally about what matters. They want to live with a greater sense of purpose. But essentially, a life letter, as I call it, because not everybody likes the word will, an ethical will, and there are a lot of people also who don't like the word legacy. So a life letter, whatever you choose to call it, is a way to convey your deepest values, most important family history, the stories that you hold the dearest. What is the most sacred? What are the most sacred things to you that you want to share with your loved ones or your community? It's not about passing on what you want your loved ones to have, which is what is typically done in a legal will.
Right.
This is about sharing what you want your loved ones and your community to know. You know, it is a marvelous way to share what matters most today, as well as, because the life letter is typically presented in one's lifetime, right? So it's not like a will where you wait until there's a death. This is an opportunity to connect the generations and to deepen your relationships and to share really what's foremost in your heart.
So you share it now.
You share it now. It's a cause for celebration. You share it on birthdays. You share it at a retirement. You share it at Christmas. You share it at a family gathering. You share it when you want to share it. And it's something that can be amended over time because
So it's not permanent.
It's not permanent. Life changes. Life priorities and circumstances may change, but chances are our values don't really change. And so that's really the essence of the life letter.
Now, is it a couple pages?
It can be a couple pages, it can be
100
18 pages. It is not 100 pages. It is not meant to be your biography, your autobiography, or your memoir. That's very different. It is also, it's a distilled offering. So it is a distilled, it's a distilled document that really reflects your deepest, most sacred, most important wishes, values, stories, history. It's also not meant to be a time where we point the finger or cast judgment on others. It's not about the blame game. It can be an opportunity to express forgiveness and regrets, but it is not meant to cast blame. It is an opportunity to offer life lessons, but those life lessons are presented in very unique and creative and meaningful ways, depending on who's writing them. The life letter isn't written by an attorney, it's written by everyday people. So when I work with clients, we really look at what is most important to everybody, you know, to that particular person. So I have a client who loves music, and he chose to write his whole life letter in a soundtrack. So he wrote his deepest wishes to his daughters and his wife through the lens of different verses, and then he put them to music. I have another client who was raised on poetry. She said she was raised on poetry and love, and so her life letter is going to be presented, her values, the wisdom, the teachings that she wants to impart to her family. She wants to share that through the lens of poetry. Some people do photo montages. Some people just do a straight letter, and that's perfectly fine. I have another client in Ontario. I've never met him actually. He's a physician. He's an ophthalmologist, and he's fascinated by the Webb telescope. And he wanted to reflect on his family history and what he believes through the lens of the telescope, through what is seen and what is unseen.
Wow.
It's very rich.
That's pretty interesting. Now, I can imagine myself sitting down to write this and just like going crazy, you know, writing here and writing here and so, with not.
We have a process.
That's
I
my
have
question.
A process,
You have
right.
a process.
I have a process. And so the process, you know, I work with people individually, I work with people in groups online, I work with people live in person. Mostly it takes a month. With the exception of the retreat. So when I lead people to do the retreat, we're coming together for a concentrated period of time, and we're away from life's ordinary distractions, and we get it done. But for most people, right, it takes about a month, and in a month you're done, and it's a guided experience. We meet once a week for 4 weeks, and we get this done, and I take you through a process. I introduce you to the history and give you an overview of life letters, and then I have an exercise that I created called Through the Decades that helps people to reflect on their lives a decade at a time, and to begin to identify dominant narratives and themes, so that they can maybe see the lens through which they want to present their life letter. And then we look at values, and we learn to sort of group our values into a couple different buckets, because we can't present a life letter with 100 different values. That's going to be boring.
I see.
And then I encourage people to tell stories around that to make it less preachy, right, and more impactful. And then we work on outlining and drafting, and then finally sharing, because it is something to celebrate.
So
And people who do this feel an enormous peace of mind that they can live their values and go forward. Yes, they're done at 4 weeks. And then we give the life letter, we share everybody's life letter. We print it on archival paper in a special archival folder, and we send everybody a keepsake box that's also archival. And in the keepsake box, they can put the life letter, they can put personal mementos, like notes from a beloved grandparent. They can put a poem. They could put a purple heart. I have somebody going to put a purple heart in there.
Sure.
Right? I mean, you're not putting diamonds and things
Right,
that would go
right.
into a safe deposit box, but you're putting these wonderful, treasured mementos that we don't know where to put these keepsakes.
Right.
You know, a little plastic world that your son made you, right? That is meant to be the world.
Right.
Those kinds of real treasures.
Cool. Now, who's your audience for this?
My audience is anybody and everybody who has an interest in reflecting on their lives in a meaningful, purposeful way. They don't necessarily have to have children. I have several clients who just want to write a life letter to their community. They're deeply philanthropic, perhaps. They are very involved in volunteer work, and they're interested in passing this on. But for the most part, they're people who have had a little bit of life experience. People in their, I would say, 55 plus. I do have people who are younger. As a matter of fact, there are people going to be at the Asheville retreat who are probably going to be a little bit younger. But I would say typically people who are sort of in that 50 plus sweet spot of life where you've had a little life experience, you know what matters to you, you know what direction you want your life to move into, you have roots. You have roots. And it's also for anybody who has wished that they would have liked to have known more about the people who came before them in their life. There was enormous interest in genealogy and in family history. And so this is an opportunity to write and to share that sacred family history. again, it's not meant to be a family history book. But it's an opportunity to distill some of the most important family history, because let's face it, if you're writing this and you're sharing it with younger children or, future generations to come, so they're all addressed a little differently. So I have clients who write this as, to my loved ones today and those yet to come, right? Those yet to come, or to my loved ones today, chances are they may not be reading 100 pages, but they probably are going to want to read a focused document, a treasured life letter that says it all in less pages.
Very interesting, very interesting. Well, for those who are listening, how can they get more information about GAB, but mostly more information about
Right.
life letters?
Well, I have a website called writeyourlifeletter.com. WRITE lifeletter, writeyourlifeletter.com. You can also see my personal website at nancysharp.net. If you go to nancysharp.net, you can find out more information about guided autobiography or GAB. You can also be connected to the Life Letters page right there.
Okay, great. Well, we'll put that on our page, and we'll make sure that this information gets out. And thank you, Nancy, for your time
Thank you,
and
Steve.
explaining
Thank you.
these important documents.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It is the most important letter you'll ever write.
Okay, thank you very much. Anything else you want to add?
No.
Okay, we're fine. You got that down?
Okay, so like that was an interview, we just,
What's that?
yeah,
What do you think?
good.
I
I
love.
would have dressed a little differently.
I recorded it in 4 spots
You did.
just because I got it here.
On the SD card. Oh,